here's level 3. Some people find level 3 easier than level 2, but you'll see if you decide that. In level 3, both equations must be multiplied in order to make the coefficients opposites. Remember, the coefficients have to be opposites. That's what has to happen first in order for the variable to eliminate, right? So like I have to have a negative 3x sitting on top of a positive 3x, or I have to have a positive 5y sitting on top of a negative 5y. That has to happen in order for one of the variables to eliminate. And the only way that I can solve the equation is for one of the variables to eliminate. Now notice here, the issue is like there's nothing I can multiply 2 by to get 3. Well, I can multiply by a decimal, but I don't want to do that. And there's nothing I can really multiply by 4 by to get 5, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both equations in order to get coefficients that are opposites. Now, in this case, you just get to choose which variable you're going to eliminate. Okay, you get to choose. Now, I'm going to take one approach over here, and I'm going to take a different approach over here, so you can kind of see both approaches. But it turns out it doesn't really matter. Let's say I decide right now that I am going to eliminate the x. Okay, I want these to be opposites. Right now, it's a positive 3 and a positive 2, and I want them to be numbers that are opposites. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, okay, 3 times 2 is 6. I want this to be positive 6x, and this to be negative 6x, right? How did I decide on 6? I did 3 times 2. Okay, now, if I want this to be positive 6x, what am I going to have to multiply by for 3 to become positive 6? Well, in order for 3 to become positive 6, I have to multiply by 2. Okay, that's the way to make this a positive 6. Okay, so let's do that. 2 times 3, that's positive 6x. That's what I wanted it, right? Remember, I want this to be positive 6x and this to be negative 6x. And then I'm doing 2 times 4y and 2 times 6. Okay, now, I want this, remember I said this was going to be positive 6x, and this has to be negative 6x. Well, what am I going to have to multiply this by in order for me to get negative 6x over here? Well, first of all, this is a positive, so I'm going to have to multiply it by a negative to make it negative. And 2 times what is 6? 2 times 3 is 6. So now I am multiplying by negative 3. Negative 3 times 2 is 6x. Negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15. And negative 3 times negative 19, right? Negative times negative is positive, and 3 times 19 is 57. Okay, now let's add these up. 6x minus 6x, that's 0. Remember, that's what I wanted. Okay, so that's good, right? Remember, that was my goal, to make them opposites. And now I'm going to add these up. And with level 3, you are going to end up sometimes with larger numbers, right? Because I have to multiply both of these equations. So I'm going to end up with larger numbers. That's okay. Use a calculator if you want. Okay, I get 23y equals 69. And when I want y by itself, I need to divide by 23. And I get y equals 3. Okay, so now I have y equals 3. And as always, once I have my y value, I need to plug back in and find my x value. So I'm just going to use this first equation. I'm plugging in. Notice I'm plugging in for y. 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. 6 minus 12 is negative 6. And when I divide by 3, I get negative 2. Okay, so my answer is negative 2 comma 3. As always, I can check by just plugging it into my other equation really fast, making sure that works out. This becomes negative 4 minus 15 equals negative 19, which is true. Let's try a different approach on this one. So here, notice what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to get the x's to eliminate. And the x's were both positive numbers. What I notice over here is that the y's, one is already positive and one is already negative. So if I multiply these, then I'll end up with one positive number and one negative number. And I won't have to multiply. I won't have to deal with the signs when I multiply, right? I can just multiply by a positive number, and I'll still end up with one positive, one negative. Now, these numbers are a little bigger, right? Because I'm gonna multiply 6 and 7 basically, and I'm gonna end up with some bigger numbers, but it's okay. Use a calculator if you need to. So here, right, 6 times 7 is 42. So I want this to be positive 42 and this to be negative 42. So notice, I'm not going to have to change the signs. This one's already negative, this one's already positive. But if I want this to be positive 42, then I need to multiply this by 7. And if I want this to be negative 42, I need to multiply this one by 6. Okay? So, here we go. 7 times 2, 14x. 7 times 6, positive 42x. And 7 times 4 is 28. Now I'm multiplying by 6. 6 times 3 is 18x. 6 times negative 7 is negative 42x. And 6 times 6 is 36. Now, 42 minus 42, that's 0. That's what I like, right? I like for it to cancel. That's what I'm looking for. So now I'm just going to be careful here. I'm going to do the math. 4 plus 8 is 2, right? This is 32x equals 64. And when I divide by 32 on both sides, I get x equals 2. Let's plug back in and find y. I'm plugging in 2 for x. I get 6y equals 0. When I divide by 6 on both sides, I know that y equals 0. Right? And let's just check that really quick. If I plug into this equation, I get 3 times 2 minus 7 times 0 equals 6. 3 times 2 does equal 6. This equals 0. I get 6 equals 6. Looks good. And there's my answer. Okay? Observe some of the patterns here in order to help you when you get to the practice questions.